Yeah, I'm happy to have you on.
Yeah,
Eager
thanks
kind
so
of see
much.
what your minus 22 and stuff like that is all about, how you got there, because I have seen a few of the things you've posted and watched some of your videos, and it seemed like you did a lot of work. You put a lot of work into what y'all are doing over there. So
Yeah, it's been a lot to this point. Yeah, we've been working on this for more than 2 years now. So 2019 is when I really wanted when I 2019 is when I knew that I needed to do something. And just kind of bouncing the ideas around, trying to figure out what we wanted to do, or how we wanted to kind of approach this. It just kind of all these things kind of transpired one from another, and just been kind of riding the momentum ever since of everything. And I can't even believe we're as far as we are right now. We just had our first fundraiser and everything as an official nonprofit. Like, I still can't believe that's a thing. Like we're a legitimate entity. You know what I mean? Like, the government signed off on us and gave us approval, and I'm like, wait, you sure? Like, all right, well,
damn, that's
so.
impressive. I mean, and then I think what makes it, like you said, you started 2019. I mean, I think of like most veterans I've talked to, it's when they have started something or whatever it is, it takes them like years to get to that point where like, okay, you know what, now I need to do this. Like, I'm feeling like this is where I'm actually supposed to be going, starting a nonprofit or starting some type of business or outreach type thing. So the fact that you did it, we started the year after you got out. I mean, that's kind of like unheard of, I guess you can say, because I'm not sure how like that transition was then for you from active
Yeah,
to veteran.
I had a pretty rough transition. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I never deployed anywhere. I was stationed in Hawaii for all 5.5 years that I was in, or whatever. But so in 2013 I got to my unit. 2014 I was involved in a training incident where I fractured my neck, and I didn't know that it was fractured. I couldn't. I was kind of going back and forth with the Army and with leaders and everything at the time, trying to figure out what was going on. Kind of getting labeled a shitbag for complaining, and going back and forth with all that. And so I didn't find out that my neck was actually fractured until 2017 when I started the med board process, because my injuries, it was just too much. And so civilian doctors like gave me x-rays, and they're like, hey, we're going to x-ray everything that hurts, like let us know whatever you want us to x-ray. And so I was like, yeah, all right. So I told him, like, I got chronic, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain, all this other stuff. And so the tech there, he's like, hey, so how long's your neck been fractured? I was like, what?
Oh
Like,
man.
are you serious? And he's like, yeah, you got a compression fracture in your neck. You didn't know that? I was like, well, it makes sense, but I had no idea, and and so getting out was kind of rough, because so I got out as an E5 sergeant, and I was at the time of me getting out, I was the armor for my unit, the primary armor. I was the HHC NCOIC, and I was the ops NCOIC. So I had three different jobs all rolled into one that three different people definitely should have been doing, and I was a brand new E5 doing all that stuff. And so when I started the med board process, I let my unit know, like, hey, like, this is the real deal. Like, they're saying that, I was going to try to drop a packet and go recruiter, because I knew my injuries were bad enough. After my profiles and stuff, after I was injured, I was on, like, your own pace and distance and all this other stuff. And I always had back pain. I always had like neck problems and whatever, but all the doctors kept telling me, like, oh, well, your neck is connected to your back, so that's why it all hurts. Like, and I was like an idiot, and the kid in the service at the time, just like, oh, okay, and going through it. And so, when I finally realized like what was happening and what was really going on, and how I'd kind of been like swept under the rug, I was like, hey, this is serious. Like, I need to we need to address this. Like, this is not this is not something to mess with. Like, I just found out 3 years later that I have a fracture in my neck, and no one cares. There's nothing they can do about it now. Like,
Yeah.
all these things are making sense now. I was pushing through all these things for years, but like, this needs to be documented. And so when I started asking questions and everything, that's when you start getting some pushback on some stuff. And I kind of got put in a position where it's like, well, I'm not trying to be the squeaky wheel, right? I'm not trying to be the one whining and complaining, but you guys clearly got something wrong here. So like, I need to address it. Like, You know, if I'm be getting out anyway, then I want to make sure that my documentation is straight at least. Like, I don't care. You know, I wasn't concerned about, you know, percentages or any other stuff. I was just like, I want to make sure that this is documented because I get one body for the rest of my life. You know, when I still talk to my soldiers and stuff, that's what I tell them. I'm like, man, you get one body for the rest of your life. So give yourself a head to toe evaluation and be honest, you know, about the stuff that hurts. And if I hadn't done that and been honest, then I wouldn't have gotten the x-rays on the way out that, you know, I had the opportunity and all those things. And so it was difficult because, you know, as soon as I started, like I said, realizing like, hey, this is messed up, you know, they didn't want to hear it. And they're like, well, we're going to give you a rating. This is not service connected. It's not. So you're not going to get anything for it. Get out. And I was like, well, that's just not okay. Like, it's very clear. Like, I didn't break my neck before I got in the Army. You know what I mean? Like, I can guarantee you I didn't. And so it was tough to kind of swallow all that. But then once I kind of sat back and saw it all, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do right by me then. If you're going to make me pick between you or me, you know, I'm going to pick me and I'm going to try to do the best that I can for me. So I ended up retaining a medical lawyer and a civilian doctor and had them give me a head to toe evaluation and everything. And I ended up fighting the Army on the way out because they were like adamant, like, nope. And so they went through all of my documentation that I had. Thank God I had all that documentation from the years of physical therapy and the years of everything else since the incident. And that's what saved me in the long run, was being able to do that and present that. And when I presented it to my medical lawyer, he's like, there's no, like, they can't deny this, you know? And so I think there's, like, I've talked to people about this before or whatever. And some people, you know, cause you know, getting out and getting medical retirement, getting out is something that's like so unheard of. A lot of people don't get it. Everybody gets medically separated or whatever. They gave me the bare minimum for retirement. And it's fine. Like, I wasn't shooting. It's fine. Like, whatever. I just wanted them to document that, like, hey, this happened. You know, that was my concern. Like, we got the paper trail now. Like, you sign off on this. I don't care what happens after. You know, I just want to be good to go because I got a family now. I'm getting out. Like, I got to start thinking about civilian side. You know, the family life. What I'm going to do with myself, and if any of these issues start creeping up when I'm older or whatever, if there's lingering issues, like, I want to make sure it's documented. I want to make sure it's taken care of. And so it was interesting because I kind of got a front row seat to a lot of really unfair stuff and unfair practices that happen on the way out. And luckily for me, I'd kind of known, like, as soon as I got injured, I was like, okay, like, I need to make sure I'm going to be doing what I need to do. I asked a lot of questions to a lot of people before me that were getting out and whatever about different processes and stuff, you know, like, hey, what do you suggest? And one of my old E7s, he's like, hey, man, document everything. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, no, they're documenting everything. Like, they're telling me what appointments to go to. Like, I'll just get my medical records. He's like, no. Document all of your stuff. And because he told me to do that, I literally did. I had copies of all my records, and they hated seeing me at medical records over there. Cause every month, you know, every other month I'd go down and be like, hey, I need an updated set of records, you know, and I'd keep the backups. They hated me for it. And, but it is what it is. That's what saved me getting out. And the fact that I had to jump through that many hoops to get get that just documented, that was very eye-opening for me. And it was kind of troubling too, because, like, you know, I think as service members, I mean, I can speak for the Army. You know, we're told from day one to shut our mouths and, you know, soldier up and keep going. And so that's what I did for years. And, like, you know, I went, I graduated top of my class in BLC, my promotion academy and everything, when I made sergeant and everything, and I had to do all this stuff. I had to push through it all. It hurt. It literally hurt, you know, and doing all that. And I had no idea. And then on the back end, finding out, like, hey, all of this stuff was there while you were doing it. It was like, I can't believe that. Like, I was shocked.
And I think the thing that's crazy to me, at least, I mean, because I feel like that's becoming, like, from just people I've talked to also doing, like, this podcast since I started, medical issues seem to be far more common than I had actually thought prior to talking to folks. Like, because, you know, like for myself and like even my buddies in the Navy, it was just a smooth transition, or not smooth, but getting out was just like by choice. We didn't have that I know of any serious medical issues and stuff. But even folks like in the Air Force I've talked to, all Marines and Army, I mean, for sure. But it's just crazy how like common it is. And then, but for you to have like the wherewithal to get the lawyer and all that stuff, I think a lot of folks, I'm sure you've encountered that, just they're like, okay, well they're saying they can't do nothing, and they just go about it and they get out, and then they're screwed going in the future.
That's the worst too, because I have like 5 like good friends from the Army, and I got a bunch of buddies from the Army, but my 5 good friends, like literally, let me see, 4 of the 5 of them are worse off than me, and they have no representation. You know what I mean? And like no, and like I've tried to like walk them through the processes too. Like, hey, you got to document this. Like as soon as they get out, hey, do this, and this, and and it seems like the same old song and dance. Everybody's like, no, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. Don't want to deal with it. I want to get out. And then we get to years later, and now your problems have snowballed on top of you. You have no documentation. It's even more of an uphill battle, even more waiting times for the VA and everything else. It's like, it's really unfortunate that it's so common. And that's kind of something that I've seen throughout this process as well, is one of the many issues that I fully believe is one of the leading causes to the suicide issues that we have now with the suicide phenomenon. And it's not just that. It's not just one aspect of the military or any of that stuff. I think there's a ton of things that kind of compile and compress us into this mindset where we as service members kind of believe that we don't deserve anything. Like we're conditioned to believe that we're not, like, we're supposed to truck on, we're supposed to do it. But like, I think the craziest thing for me was I was talking to this civilian doctor, and she's like, hey, what's your pain level? And I was like, oh, the usual amount. And she's like, there's no usual amount for pain. I'm like, yeah, there is. Like, what are you talking about? I know, like, everybody I work with is in pain. Like, what? Like, you drink beer, throw a dip in, go about your day. Like, I don't know. Like, and it's too common. It really is too common. And when I really sat back, when she's like, hey, I want you to, like, she's like, I want to do this head to toe evaluation stuff. I want you to be honest. Like, just be honest about how all this stuff is going. And she's like, I'm going to check your mobility, your flexibility, your range of motion, and all this stuff. And she's like writing the stuff down like that I didn't even know was like issues and stuff, and it's just like, but we don't have that kind of approach in the military. At least I didn't. I can't speak for you or anybody else or any other service member, but my experience in the military was, you toe the line, you shut up, and you keep going. Like, you do whatever you got to do to get back in the fight. Like in basic, everybody after the peanut butter shots and everything, everybody's all coughing and hacking and all this other stuff. I was coughing up nasty stuff for like a week, and I didn't say nothing until I coughed up blood one morning. And I was like, okay, now I need to get checked out, but it was like, and then I went and they gave me like, some cough drops or whatever, and ibuprofen water, and, and told me to get back to it, and so, but
there's some funny things that happen in active duty. I think that just made me think of like when I got real sick on deployment, and they gave me Pepto-Bismol, the medical thing, and it's almost like it's a precursor for the VA. Like how
right. So that's the other thing too, man. Like I got, because now I try to. I think the transition from going from military back to civilian life is really tough for everybody. I've always kind of been a social dude, so like it is what it is. Like I've been able to acclimate, but it took me a long time. It took me about 6 months to stop looking over my shoulder from the military. Like after I got out, and that's like after DD 214 status and everything. I was still sleeping like crap. I was still super edgy. My anxiety was through the roof. My depression was super bad. Just all of it. Like there was tons of, and like I'm super in tune with like my mental health stuff now, and I've taken time to like kind of digest what certain triggers are or what certain warning signs or symptoms are and whatever. And I've done a lot to kind of keep myself in check with that. But now I've tried to incorporate like more civilians into my life, and like, it's funny because they'll ask you like, oh, hey, well, oh, you got healthcare, right? How is the VA? And it's like, well, so I tell people all the time, like, hey, would you want your doctor to if you went to the doctor, would you prefer that he was at the DMV?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, that sounds awful. I'm like, well, there you go. That's, it's kind of one size fits all healthcare or whatever. And I think that's a big issue too. I honestly, I could, I think we all have our own biases as veterans and as service members as to where the problems are and where they come from. I definitely have my own, and I have some ideas as to where we can improve on things. But the fact that so many people from so many different walks of life can all be coming to the same conclusion about how bad the VA is and the treatment, like that should tell you something. And the fact that you and I, this is the first time I've ever met you. You and I can say that we can name 10 people that we know of that got injured in the military that don't have any representation at all. Now that they're out, like, and that's so far beyond backwards to me. And so, it was really like, I felt like it took me a long time to like get back to civilian Dave, like a real long time to get back to like, and then once I figured out like, hey, like I'm a civilian, I'm like, well, shit, what do I do now? Like, what am I going to do for fun? Like now that I know that the knife hand's not coming at me, there's not going to be some drill sergeant kicking in my door or something, you know what I mean? Or some guy getting like, now that pressure, that stress, that it's gone, like, well, now what do I do? And so for the last few years, I've just tried to focus on all the stuff that I really enjoy as an individual, trying to like find myself again, and trying all kinds of new things and just, I don't know, kind of figuring it out, reacclimating. I don't think so. I'm a firm believer that civilian you dies as soon as you enlist. That civilian you is gone. Like you're never going to get that person back. But there's a beauty in the kind of being reborn on the way out. Once you get out and you're no longer a part of the military, you're no longer owned by the government. You can start branching out into wherever the hell you want to, and really finding yourself. And those two things meet, like those two lives meet. Like, I think that's beautiful. And I think that a lot more people need to do a lot more of that in finding out, what makes them tick and why,